The Washington Post published a truly bizarre piece asking whether neoliberalism can be saved by Gen Z. In fact, let me give you the headline. Can these Gen Z and millennial wonks make neoliberalism cool again? Okay, number one, cool again?
Yeah, when was it cool?
Number two, no.
Yeah. So there, we answered.
We're done. We're done.
Shortest clip ever. Okay, seriously, the media, the corporate media, loves trying to force popularity onto deeply unpopular pro-corporate positions.
Totally.
They do it in almost every article. Like in every couple of weeks or so, they'll be like, "Oh my God, is corporate tax cuts the new cool hip thing among young people and African Americans?" Like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You just made that up. That isn't, no. And so this is another great example of it. And I'm gonna tell you how absurd it is as Anna gives you the details.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna start off with some speculation. And my speculation is that the writer of this piece, Graham Vise, was being trolled by the individuals that he interviewed and spoke to, right? So
no way.
Okay, so I'll give you the quotes. They just seem so outlandish to me.
No, they 100% believe it. I guarantee it to you.
Now, Graham Vise, again, the author of this article, explains why no one likes neoliberalism in the very first paragraph. And I think the very last sentence is the most accurate. So he writes, if you've heard the word neoliberal in American political discourse in recent years, it probably hasn't sounded like a compliment. Left-wing populists say neoliberals in the Democratic Party sold out to Wall Street.
Correct.
True. Right-wing populists say neoliberals in the conservative establishment abetted the rise of so-called woke capitalism.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It says usual with the right wing, they make no sense.
Stupid. Political scientists talk about neoliberalism in yet another way, as a bipartisan political consensus around free markets, which has been blamed for inequality, the escalating climate crisis, and other social ills.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, which is accurate. That is accurate. So, and look, the thing with neoliberalism, like we went into the period of neoliberalism under Bill Clinton, right? And so when you think of free trade, when you think of NAFTA, when you think about us normalizing relations, our economic relationship with China, that's part of the neoliberal project, right? Outsourcing jobs to exploit cheap labor, deregulation, those kinds of things.
Austerity. So people get confused, especially the older generation, because they're like, wait, it's liberal. Liberal is protecting the workers and stuff, right? No, it's neoliberal. And it's different than progressive. Progressives and neoliberals don't agree at all. They're the opposite ends. Progressives say, hey, we should have democracy curtail corporate power on behalf of the people, right? And neoliberals say, no, give everything to the top. Give it to corporations, give it to giant governments. And then hopefully, maybe decades later, it'll trickle all over you. And then that way you'll get the rewards. But in the meanwhile, we're cutting spending, and we're gonna give tax cuts to the rich.
Yeah, and under neoliberalism, there is a role for government. It's just that government weighs in on behalf of big business to protect big business rather than.
They really needed it, so thank God they rode to the rescue.
Now, so the rest of the article is dedicated to the writer's conversations with several young members of what's referred to as the Center for New Liberalism, which has about 10,000 members across the world, which sounds about right, right?
Yeah, but guys, think about it. So I don't know what the proclivity of the writer is, because he might have written the first paragraph as this is real, and the rest is what my editor assigned to me. Okay, but clearly the editor of the Washington Post wanted to make it appear to be popular among young people when it isn't, so that none of the facts actually back up the thesis of the article. Right? So what is it, 10,000 people?
10,000 people total.
Okay, so if you cared about what was really hot with Gen Z or millennials, and I'm gonna use us as the example just because I know the numbers, okay? We have 22 million subscribers, not 10,000.
Okay.
If we got 10,000 in a video, it would be deeply embarrassing. My point is, why is the Washington Post cherry picking a tiny, tiny little thing and pretending it's cool?
We know why.
Right?
We know why.
Oh, and it doesn't have to be us. You can pick any show. And so, but they never write about those because we don't agree with corporate rule.
So, so he talks to these young folks, right? Gen Z and millennials who are part of this organization. By the way, the Center for Neoliberalism is also a creation of the Progressive Policy Institute, which is not a progressive think tank. It is actually a centrist think tank that has taken a page out of the Republican playbook of naming things in euphemisms to hide the fact that in this case, they're actually just moderates and centrists. And proponents of neoliberalism. Now, here are what the young neoliberals have to say about their policy beliefs. The cohort of neoliberals is enthusiastic about deregulation to achieve progressive goals. What? But also committed to a strong social safety net. These neoliberals are generally supportive of President Biden, even if PPI has taken issue with some of his more left-leaning policies. Okay, so let's pause for a second. No, but here's the thing. Neoliberals love austerity and they do not believe in a robust social safety net. They don't. That is the antithesis of neoliberalism.
And what does it mean to deregulate in a progressive way to achieve progressive goals?
Yeah.
Deregulation is not a progressive goal. So you're just making stuff up. And they're just desperate to make it seem like, oh, people really care, including, by the way, the words moderate and centrist. According to the polling, they're not moderate or centrist at all. Conservatives hate him, progressives hate him, the whole country hate him, right? The only people who call him moderate and centrist are other corporate goons in Washington, D.C., including their paid publicist, the Washington Post.
So Graham Weiss speaks to this one 24-year-old by the name of Carl Nielsen, a 24-year-old aerospace engineer who leads the DC chapter, told me his brother turned him on, I can't even believe this is true, turned him on to his neoliberal community a few years ago, and he was immediately smitten. I was like, dude, this is it. This is where I belong. This is where we belong. The memes were fantastic.
Please stop.
They were doing a neoliberal shill bracket, which is a Twitter tournament where you vote to determine who's the chief neoliberal shill. That was really easy to get excited about, so I jumped right in.
Are these guys all Urkels? Or, I mean, now I'm thinking,
no, they're trolling the guy.
There's 10% chance, 20% chance they're trolling.
They're trolling him, Cenk. Who says like, oh, neoliberal shill contest, can't wait to participate.
The only reason why you and Edwin are sure that they're trolling, and I'm generally sure they're not.
There are no neoliberal Gen Zers.
No.
No, there aren't.
No, you guys are wrong.
No, I'm right.
No, I know why you're wrong. Because you never lived in Washington. I lived in Washington. Washington is filled with dorks just like that. And you know who they grow up to be? Pete Buttigieg. And so I once went to Hillary Clinton headquarters. It was filled with people like that. All these, like, their parents are upper middle class to upper class, okay? And they're up and comers. They're going to Yale, they're going to Stanford, okay? And they think like, oh, the Globe meme is so cool. I got my meme game on. So yeah, they're dorks and nerds who wanna work at Goldman Sachs and like being a neoliberal.
Oh, well, Carl Nielsen, the 24-year-old aerospace engineer that we just heard about, works for Northrop Grumman, so.
Of
course,
he's not trolling.
Homeboy ain't trolling.
He ain't trolling, he works for a defense contractor.
Man, it's just that, look, all I ever hear from is anarchist Gen Zers.
Oh, so okay? You're in your own boat.
No, but literally, like, and so I always like think to myself, wow, Gen Z is so far to the left that it makes me feel like I'm a right winger sometimes, which I'm not, of course, but you know what I'm saying.
You know, I do, and so, but guys, these are the people who run the country. So the Gen Zers that are overwhelmingly progressive don't have any power, zero, none, zero. The 4 guys that they found who work at defense contractors and think Pete Buttigieg is hot, they actually run the country. Because why? They're part of the corporate machines. And so corporate machines run us. And that's what the whole point of being a progressive is to fight against that. So that's why this article is unintentionally, ironically hilarious.
So as Jeremiah Johnson, policy director for the Center for Neoliberalism, would later recall, many of his fellow posters wanted to joke about the sexiness of economist Paul Krugman, or how former Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke and his successor Janet Yellen were god emperors of the universe. This is the kind of stuff that they write about and joke about on Reddit and Twitter and other social media.
You know why, Anna? To us, that looks like obvious trolling, but it's not trolling because they really do want to be Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen.
No,
that's their goal in life. And by the way, they'll get there because the corporate system will take them and promote them instantly. Like they will zoom up that ladder. In politics, if they say, oh my God, the overlords are great.
If I had children, well, I guess I wouldn't even have this problem if I had children today. But let's say I was one of the elite, right? I'm doing well for myself. I'm a power player in whatever industry I'm working in. I'm making good money. I would really make a point to ensure that my kids thought we were poor. I don't want them to be part of this.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like this is gross. I would feel deep shame. Deep shame if my daughter talked about what a daddy Paul Krugman was. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? I disown you. I will not allow it. I do not accept it.
Okay, to give you a sense of for the younger generation, you have to tell them who Paul Krugman is, right? So he's a guy who the Washington considers very liberal, like on the left. Oh, Krugman's very on the left. No, he protects establishment power. He loves corporate Democrats. And so one time on Twitter, when I said Nancy Pelosi takes money from the healthcare industry that she's supposed to be regulating, and that's why she is against Medicare for all, and that's what corruption looks like. The most standard thing you've ever heard if you're in the younger generation, because that's so obviously true.
Or if you're connected to reality.
Yeah, because those are verifiable facts.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Paul Krugman, who's supposed to be an economic guru at Princeton and writes for the New York Times, jumped in and said, this is vicious and unacceptable. I don't remember the exact words he used, but he was like apoplectic. You could see him sweating through Twitter. Like,
he was very upset.
How dare you besmirch the honor of our queen, Nancy Pelosi? Hey, dude, you got any facts to disagree with here? And he's like, no, you just cannot criticize the powerful, and they should rule us all. That's who Krugman is, and these dorks look up to him because they want to be him. There are people like, guys, remember this. It's a country of 330 million people. So power will find whoever they need and elevate them, right? We tell you about that in the context of the Supreme Court. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh both ruled in cases that corporations could kill their employees and get away with it. I'm oversimplifying, but not by much, okay? And so they were elevated. Once the corporate machine saw these guys will do anything for us, they go straight to the Supreme Court. These dorks will be representatives or senators within a decade, okay? They're like, oh, you work for a defense contractor and you're at a think tank that thinks corporations are awesome. We're gonna give you millions of dollars and have you run a race. We're gonna drown the progressive in the primary with all the money that you have, and then we'll pretend you're a star. Oh my God, look, they won when they're so young. The American people love them, Gen Z loves them. No, you just elevated them with all the money you have, and then do gigantic propaganda. And this is one of those propaganda pieces in the Washington Post, totally disconnected from reality. That's why I talked about the numbers. They bragged about these tiny, minuscule numbers you couldn't find on a microscope, right? Forget us, like the smallest progressive show on YouTube has numbers that are 20 times larger than that. And the Washington Post would never write about them, never, right? They will never take things that are actually cool. So again, forget us, let's talk about Haas, right? Hassan Piker, incredibly popular on Twitter, YouTube, etc. I mean, and parts of mainstream media that are geared towards younger people have written about him, but is the Washington Post and New York Times are like, oh, this thing is actually hot? He's like super hot among younger viewers, right? No, because they don't want to elevate it. They want to suppress it.
Hasn't Haas been written about in like a bunch of mainstream media outlets?
Not really, not like this. There's been like the smaller outlets that are trying to get an audience, and since they know he's big, they're trying to write off that audience, which by the way makes sense. That's how you should do it. If the Washington Post cared, they would write about Hassan, they would have written about us for 20 freaking years, right? But they see it and they go, no, we do not want that. That's a challenge to power, okay? These dorks that are supporting power, we're gonna pretend they're popular. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.